the Revved Up 906 podcast, a Detroit Pistons podcast to be exact. And I'm Hudson.
And I'm Ryan.
And before we get into episode number 15 of season 3, I got to talk to you, the people, about a few quick things. First off, shout out to Grind Clothing Co. They are our official merch sponsor. If you want to rep your favorite Detroit Pistons podcast, Revved Up 906, then click the link in the description below to Grind Clothing Co.'s website. We have a plethora of different design options. So if you want to rep your favorite podcast, whether you're at the gym, at the library, in classes, or going to a Detroit Pistons game, make sure to click that link and support your boys. We'd greatly appreciate that. And then also check out the different design options Grind Clothing Co. has on their website. A lot of different great designs for any type of style that you may like. So make sure to go check them out and follow them on Instagram. Also, if you happen to be tuning in to today's episode, but you're not so much into long form content, make sure to follow us on Instagram. That link is also below in the description below. We post clips, debate topics, comments, all kinds of different stuff on our Instagram. So make sure to go follow us. It's a great follow. And, maybe you want to be tuning in because you're interested in today's topic, but maybe you're not so much into long form content. Our reels are perfect for you because you can still stay in the know with everything going on with the Detroit Pistons. And if you are new to the channel, make sure to like and subscribe. You know, we can put out as many podcasts as we want and put out solid content, but it comes down to you, the people, to like and subscribe, because when you do that, our YouTube algorithm grows and grows and grows of people seeing our channel. So we just greatly appreciate you guys liking and subscribing, and make sure to comment below your thoughts, questions, concerns, hot takes. Put them in the comments. We'd love to know what you guys are thinking. And if you see the arrow button right below this video, that is a share button. You can share our podcast to Snapchat, Instagram, Facebook, Messenger, all the things. So if you like our podcast and you may have friends, family, colleagues that may like our podcast, also make sure to share our podcast. We'd greatly appreciate that. And we have a fun episode with you, Ryan. Whenever NBA players go through injuries, it's very difficult and frustrating as fans, and especially for the player, but it makes their return that much greater. And we're going to be talking about the return of the great and powerful Jaden Ivey. And I know as Pistons fans, we've been waiting for this for a long time. So we're going to talk about all the little intricacies that is going to happen when Jaden Ivey inevitably makes his return to the Detroit Pistons. And we're going to talk about how it's really good timing for this to happen. But first, I want to talk about the also great and powerful Cade Cunningham, because this week, per NBA.com, they put out that he is the leader for the most improved player of the year in the NBA. And Ryan, I know a couple of weeks ago, I put a couple dollars on, made a bet for Cade Cunningham to win this award. So I'd be very excited for many reasons for him to win this award. But Ryan, he's playing at a high level, and us Pistons fans, we've always known he's been able to do this, but nationally, he's finally getting the recognition. What are some of your first thoughts on hopefully Cade Cunningham winning most improved player?
I think it's very possible. I think it probably will happen. But my thing is, if you weren't with Cade in the beginning, you can't be with Cade now. Although I will welcome it, because I have loved the amount of love that Cade has been receiving within like the last month or so, because it's about time. He's not just some rinky-dink random player. He's Cade Cunningham. He is the franchise player for the Detroit Pistons. He is a first-time All-Star this year. He's a bunch of different things. The list goes on. What he's done in such a short period of time has been compared to all the NBA greats. And here he is, first year, probably most likely should make the playoffs. Let's be honest here. Will make the playoffs. And you're looking at, okay, what is this team built like? What are they built around? They're built around Cade Cunningham, because he is the key to the piece. I can't even talk right now because I'm so excited. He is the key to this puzzle that we've been trying to solve for
Oh yeah.
what 5+ years now of trying to get back to the playoffs is who is the next guy that's going to take us there? And the answer
Right.
is right in front of us. It's Cade Cunningham. So yes, he should have been getting this recognition from the get-go. I don't care if we're 14 wins, whatever. Cade Cunningham then was still Cade Cunningham he is today, just slightly better.
Yeah.
He should have been getting the recognition from the very start, but he hasn't. But I will say, out of a little bit of annoyance, the NBA, the amount of coverage they've given Cade within the last week has been very annoying to me because it's like, come on, you couldn't have done this all season long. It's not like he's been a good
Yeah.
player all of a sudden, like poof, like he's been that good since the start of this season. So it's
Totally.
just a little bit annoying that it's all of a sudden starting to come, and then not only all of a sudden, but it's like every single post that the NBA makes on Instagram, it's of Cade. I'm like, okay, I can appreciate this, but like, where was this a month ago? Like, come on,
Totally.
people.
No, I know. It's like, where was this his rookie year when he was balling against Jalen Green and the Houston Rockets, when he was putting up awesome numbers? And it's interesting because the NBA always kind of goes in and out of who's they're going to make the face of the NBA that season. For many years, it was John Morant when he had first come into the league in 2019. And then, he had some legal issues, and then it turned into, well, Jason Tatum, he's all he does is win. He's a winner. Da, 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 da. Now it's Jason Tatum. Or now last season it was all Paulo Banchero talk. And now it's like, okay, Cade's in the conversation, Paulo, and they're trying to bring back, Luka Doncic now that he's on the Lakers. They're trying to push him. So it's like, it just depends on, and I don't know how they decide who to talk about. Yeah, maybe it's the stats. I'd like to think they're just trying to make some money, but it seems that they're trying to push a different guy as like the league's best. Every different week there's a new guy, and it's nice that lately it's been our great and powerful Cade Cunningham, which has been awesome. Let's get into today's episode. Like you mentioned before, we are going to be talking about the return of Jaden Ivey, and it's been long awaited. And I didn't think this was going to happen. Usually, when a guy gets injured, like, you basically see him on the bench sometimes and you don't hear anything else. And I thought, we would get more updates about Jaden Ivey through the process. A broken fibula is nothing to blink at. And so I thought we'd be kind of more in the loop, but the same thing happened with Jaden Ivey. He just kind of disappeared for a couple months. Every couple months we would see a video of him. Okay, now he's walking in the gym. Okay, he's working out in the pool, trying to focus on running and getting these muscles right. And then about 2 weeks ago, we saw him finally taking shots and really trying to get back to that game speed. And so it's been a slow process, but Jaden Ivey seems like his morale is very good. And I think he's been very excited to see what the Detroit Pistons have been able to do in his absence, really be a resurgence of a team, that the Eastern Conference didn't think was going to be a team to even worry about. And now, they go from 14 wins and right now they're at 41. So it's just been a great turnaround. And so here is a quote from Pistons_PR, the Pistons official PR Twitter or X account. And they had said about 2 weeks ago, this was their quote: Pistons guard Jaden Ivey continues to make progress in his recovery from a broken left fibula, which he suffered on January 1 against the Orlando Magic. His rehabilitation efforts have transitioned to include weight bearing, strengthening exercises, running progression activity, and stationary shooting. Ivey's progress will be updated in another 4 weeks. That was 2 weeks ago. So we should have a big message coming in the next 2 weeks, hopefully sooner than that, as we are starting to hear inklings that Jaden Ivey will return for sure for the last 5 to 4 games of the season, the regular season. So then he's back fully in the rotation, starting to get back to normal in-game speed for when the playoffs start and their big bout against whoever they will have in the first round. Ryan, with knowing some of this from Pistons PR, expecting a new message in about a week or two, are you excited? Are you nervous? Do you think it will go smooth? Where's your head at as far as this? Because when you add a guy like Jaden Ivey who takes a lot of shots, is very active, it kind of will change up the whole rotation. Where's your head at with Jaden Ivey's return?
So here's what I think will happen. When you look at what Ivy had done before the injury, you're going, okay, he's going to be just fine. But
Right.
then you always think of, okay, put myself in his shoes. Like go about it mentally, think about what he'd be thinking about. And it's tough coming back from any kind of injury.
Totally.
It doesn't matter what it is. But whenever it's a leg injury or happens to be connected to your leg at some point, um, you second guess yourself. You think,
Mm-hmm.
okay, can I do this again, or am I gonna be held back? Because it's completely different to train and do rehab and all of that working up to come back. Whereas if you're going into the game, it's completely different just because your mindset is like, oh crap, it worked out in training, but this is different because it's in a game now. And so you
Right.
try to think of, okay, can I actually do this? And so I think it all depends on where we are playoff push wise for the last couple of games of the season. If JB Bickerstaff in Trajan Langdon and co see our position in the playoffs as not changing, even if we lose a couple games towards the end there, then Ivy will get a lot of playing time. If it is down to the line on, okay, we kind of have to play these games out and actually compete every night, because if we start losing, who knows? The Atlanta could make a push to get the sixth seed.
Right.
All
Totally.
these teams below us could make a push. So I think it will all determine what we'll get, what we'll see per se out of Jaden Ivey come the last couple games when he's coming back. But it just depends on where our team is at as a whole. Because if we're in a position where we can lose a couple games, then Ivey's going to play a lot because there's nothing to lose there. But if it's coming down to crunch time, Ivey's going to probably see a couple minutes here and there, but he's not going to get a whole lot of playing time. And all of this comes down to really is coaching. What does JB Bickerstaff see? What does he
Mm-hmm.
hear? What does he think could happen? It's all in his hands on what Jaden Ivey's return could look like. He is a phenomenal coach, and he's proven that in year one, going from 14 to 41 wins. There's a big difference there. What he's done with throwing in different rotational pieces. So, like, he'll have Ron Holland out there with Malik Beasley. Why? Because that helps Ron Holland take the pressure off of himself, but then
Totally.
also improves his jump shot because you have Malik out there who's shooting 40% from three, who's by far one of the best 3-point shooters in the league right now, next to Ron Holland, who's, I'm going to say it, he sucks at his 3-point shot. If you have somebody who's uplifting and who can shoot and just be a good leader around him, he's going to improve his game. So just different rotations that JB has put and presented to this young Pistons team, and not even just young, this mixed really. But what he's done with certain rotational pieces here and there has proven himself to be a good coach and has proven himself to just to make that big of a jump from 14 to 41. So I think what it really comes down to is just the position our team is in with the last couple of games and whether or not Ivy's going to get the reins tightened or loosened. It just depends on where we are with the last couple games in terms of seeding. If we can afford to lose a couple games, Ivy's going to get play a lot. If we can not necessarily afford to lose a couple games, he's going to get a little bit of a minutes restriction. But I think even with the first game back, I think he's still going to have a minutes restriction no matter what, because this is the first time he's going to be playing in a very long time. So I think we can expect we can't just sit here and go, yes, Jaden Ivey is going to be the same player he was before the injury. We can't say that. And we
Mm-hmm.
can't say that he's going to be a lesser version. He's probably going to be the same Jaden Ivey, but just on a minutes restriction. And to me, minutes restriction or not, I'm just excited to see him out there. It doesn't
Yeah, me
matter if
too.
we end up losing a couple games here and there. I'm just excited to see Jaden Ivey out there. I'd rather have him go within the last couple games of the season and maybe we lose our games there, because then come playoff time, the expectation is not to lose. So then Ivy's going to step his game up, and then we're going to be smooth sailing. But if we don't get those couple of games in there, and then we kind of wait a little bit and then throw him into the playoffs, and then it just crumbles and falls out from underneath his feet, like I don't want that. So
Mhm.
it all depends on our position come playoff time, and that will, I really think, determine the amount of minutes Ivy gets.
I'm not going to necessarily say I'm nervous, but one thing that pops up as a worry for me is when you look at Jaden Ivey's play style, we know he is at his best when he is in a fast paced offense, getting up and down the court in transition. Usually, when he is hot, getting 30 a game, or has a 30-point game, that this type of talk, he's usually scoring within the first 6-7 seconds of an offensive possession. He is not a guy that's going to run down the shot clock and wait for it to go out. Like, he is a quick scorer. And my only thing is when Jaden Ivey's going to be coming back on a minute restriction and trying to find his pace back in the NBA, I worry that they'll rush him in a playoff series and he's going to struggle because his leg isn't quite there yet. Not saying he hasn't made a full recovery, just as like he's been off for 3 months. Like, that's a long time to sit on a couch and be watching The Office. Like, you gotta. I'm just a worry a little bit that when Jaden Ivey's going to be forced to take threes, take the mid range game, and not feel like he can rim rush like he typically loves to, and he's great at, that it might put the Pistons in an offensive situation where what do you do there? And what do you do? Like, do you then start Tim Hardaway Jr. instead of Jaden Ivey? We'll talk about that a little bit more. So, but I'm just a little worried because when we saw Jaden Ivey struggle his rookie season, it was mainly because he fell in love with the three ball or fell in love with the mid range game. Jaden Ivey is at his best when he is rim rushing, and then the defense worries about him blowing by him, that they lean off around the 3-point line and he's able to knock them down when they need it to. But that only happens because they're worried about Jaden Ivey blowing by him. So they have to leave that space there. So I don't know. I'm interested to see how that's going to go. That's just a thought that I have when talking about Jaden Ivey. Because I remember when we were doing Revved Up recaps, there'd be games where like, yeah, Jaden shot 7 to 8 threes, and we don't know why. Why would he do that? And that's just because in today's NBA, right, guards shoot 8 threes a game. That's what has to happen. Well, not with Jaden Ivey. And so I just want to see what happens there in that scenario where Jaden Ivey's coming back. Maybe he comes back and he is fully recovered, ready to go. He's what Jaden Ivey was at the beginning of the season. Like you said, Ryan, I hope that's the case, but we all know that we have to come back to earth a little bit and be like, yeah, that was a serious injury. Whenever you hear broken fibula, oh my gosh, like that's rough. And so I'm just going to be interested to see with what Jaden Ivey are we getting back. Is it the same old Jaden Ivey, or is this a more refined guy that has to worry about what he does at the 3-point line? It's going to be interesting, but of course, with all things, time will tell. So be watching closely the next Detroit Pistons game when Jaden Ivey does return, because I know I'll be watching real close to see what he is capable to do when he makes his return. Make sure to comment below your thoughts on Jaden Ivey's return and what his role may be in his return. We do have some great quotes from Jaden Ivey in the last week. And I mentioned before that morale-wise, he seems great. Mental health-wise, seems great. I think he probably appreciated having some time with his 2 young children and his wife, and just kind of being able to take it slow, knowing that the Pistons are playing really well, doesn't have to stress about his job necessarily, which is always like a nice tip of the cap as far as just, hey, we got it on this side. We'll win some basketball games. Jaden, you get healthy. And I think that may have been able to have ease his mind a little bit. But one of the quotes we saw from in the Henry Ford Health System practice facility with the media, this was his quote about his story and his journey in the NBA. Quote, "This is part of my story, trusting the Lord. When I get back, I'll see what it takes to become a winner and play meaningful basketball." And, last year was a rough season for Jaden Ivey and his introduction to the NBA. It will just be nice for him to know that he's playing in some big games and trying to win some basketball games. And I think having guys like Malik Beasley, Tim Hardaway Jr., that are in his position realm, knowing that they're playing very well right now, that it'll ease his mind a little bit. Ryan, it seems to me that NBA players can take it either way. They can either be down and out on themselves because they're out of injury, seeing the team succeed. They're a little jealous, or a lot of mental stuff going on there. But Jaden Ivey seems like mentally he seems really healthy, and we're getting a new and improved Jaden Ivey.
Yeah, I think so. I think he really needed like coming after last season. You're sitting there going like, okay, what does this team do?
Yeah.
What are we actually capable of doing? But and the thing is, to end the season last year, all of them said together in unison, like, we can easily do this. Like, we can easily go out there and compete on any given night. We don't want this to happen 2 years in a row. We don't want this to happen 3 years in a row. We're hungry. We want to get going. And then you come into this season and Ivy averaging 17 points a game. Cade Cunningham doing his thing. Malik Beasley adding another piece to the mix. Jalen Duren taking another step up in his game. Like, everybody improved. And even like the last couple of games, even without Cade in the lineup, we've seen Marcus Sasser have two career nights back to back. Like, that's awesome, dude. Like, he hadn't seen the floor pretty much all season long, gets thrown in because of injuries, and goes off. Like, that's just evidence of like this team is different. We're built to win this year, not obviously built to win a championship because that's a whole nother level. But I think we're built to win at least a playoff game. So what Ivy has gone from last year to this year, I think excites him because he's gotten to see like behind the scenes on what makes this team so great. Like, even when he gets the broken fibula, probably out for the rest of the season, who knows? He's sitting there going like, well, that was crappy. Like, I started the season off, 30 games, averaging 17 plus points a game, and I'm playing probably the best basketball of my career so far, and I just went out. What happens now? And he's probably sitting there thinking to himself, okay, this team might fall out. Like, who knows what could happen? Maybe we're not the best team out there anymore. Maybe we're scratching by. But no, what he's been able to witness is what all of us Pistons fans have been able to witness. We witness a team that usually when you lose one of your best players, you fall a little bit. They did not fall. If anything, they just shot back up. And so as far as jealousy or any of those concerns arise, I think he's perfectly fine. And not only do I think he's perfectly fine, I think Tim Hardaway Jr., who's filled in for him, I think even like Malik Beasley, who's filled in from time to time for him, Dennis Schroeder, all these guys, I think all of them know darn well that they're just keeping this spot warm. They're just sitting there doing their thing. But then when Ivy's back, they're like, yeah, he can have our spot. Like, I think for certainty, really, that once Ivy's healthy and he's ready to go once again, I think Tim Hardaway Jr., even though his role will lessen, let's be honest, it will. Even though his role will lessen, maybe Malik Beasley, his role diminishes a little bit. And same with Dennis Schroeder. I think all of these guys are still going to be fine because JB Bickerstaff knows what he can get out of those guys at any given time. So if Ivy's struggling, he puts one of those guys back in. If Ivy's playing great and wants a side piece out there with him, and not just Cade, JB is going to go like, okay, Tim Hardaway, you can go play with Jaden out there right now. Like, I don't think anything diminishes. I don't think anything hurts us. I think as far as what Ivy has been able to watch and witness with us has been fantastic because he's going like, okay, pressure-wise, it doesn't have to be just me. It's not just Cade. It doesn't just have to be the two of us. We have a whole slew of guys behind us that can step up and give us 20 any given night. Like, Tim Hardaway Jr. can give us 20 any given night pretty much if we really wanted him to. Malik Beasley could do that. Tobias Harris could do that. We have a slew of guys that are willing to step up whenever their name is called. Paul Reed doesn't have to be given a lot of time. He's going out there and still doing his thing. Marcus Sasser, 2 nights in a row, has proven to us, even with little playing time the whole season, he can come back and still be the same old Marcus Sasser. So I think when Ivy is back, we're going to be perfectly fine. And even when he's not back, I think we're perfectly fine. but adding that whole dynamic layer that he was in the beginning of the season with Beasley and Cunningham out there, oh my goodness, I can't imagine what it's going to be like when we get him back into the mix, because I think this team is not just they're special, because when you go from 14 to 41, you have to be special already. But to go from 14 to 41, lose your second best player on the team and still play at a high level any given night, this team is special.
So in a few minutes, we're going to talk about how the return of Jaden Ivey affects Malik Beasley and Tim Hardaway Jr. If it does, if it doesn't, we're going to talk about that. But first, I want to talk about a few more Jaden Ivey quotes. When Ivey spoke on his recovery, the guard felt that everything is going in a positive direction. This is from sportsillustrated.com from Cody M. Davis on Twitter. He spoke with Jaden Ivey at the Henry Ford practice facility. Quote, honestly, it went really quick since I got injured, he told reporters. I feel like everything is progressing well. I'm doing my treatments on top of everything, end quote. As far as a timeline for return goes, the young veteran doesn't have a target in sight. Quote, I feel like things are progressing well. I am lining up to make a return, but it could be day to day. Ivey continued, I'm just trying to take it day by day. I know my body. I know when I'm ready to get back and on the full court, full throttle. My spirits are, I trust in the Lord, so he knows he's a healer and will heal my body to where it needs to be. I'm just trusting what I'm going through right now and leaning on him as best as I can and continuing to get better. With Ivey slated to miss at least 4 more weeks of action, this was from 2 weeks ago, may I add, he won't be on the court for the next 13 games, including Thursday's clash with the Wizards. We're still kind of progressing for a week and a half, 2 weeks to possibly seeing a return. As we know, me and Ryan are going to be going to Detroit April, I think, 7th through the 9th or 5th through the 9th, something like that. So be on the lookout for that content, but maybe we'll possibly be there for the return of Jaden Ivey. That'd be pretty cool. Let's get into Malik Beasley and Tim Hardaway Jr. As we know, with Jaden Ivey, he makes his presence known. He is not a guy that is going to be coming off the bench, putting in Ron Holland minutes. No, Jaden Ivey will either be a starter or the sixth man off the bench as he makes his return. Does this affect Malik and Tim's role at all? Like, do you see him coming off the bench and Tim having his starting role going into the playoffs? Ryan, where's your head at as far as affecting those two guys?
I think as far as affecting Malik Beasley, it does nothing. As far as Tim Hardaway Jr., I think he'll get a couple minutes cut back a little bit. I think he still deserved to be in the starting lineup, just because. And honestly, it's not just because he's deserved it or anything, but when you think of Jaden Ivey missing the amount of time he's missed, like it's an 82 game season. He only played 30 games this year. He's missed 52 games. I think it's safe to not 52. It's not been 82. I mean, oh my goodness. Anyways, the point is, like, I think where Ivy is at right now, even if he is 100%, I think Tim Hardaway Jr. still gets those minutes, just solely because of just the chemistry that he's built up in that spot. It doesn't matter what night it is, who they're playing up against, or whatever. Tim Hardaway Jr. is either going to be doing his thing or he's going to be struggling a little bit, and then that's when you get somebody else in. So as far as if there will be a role change, I don't think so. I think Tim Hardaway Jr. will still possibly get that starting role going into the playoffs. It'll all determine on what Ivy does within his first couple minutes back. But Beasley, I don't think it changes at all. And honestly, the only guys that I really think it affects besides Tim Hardaway Jr. is like Asar Thompson and Dennis Schroeder. I think those are the only two guys that get a minutes restriction or whatever, a minutes decrease rather, off of Ivy being back. But Asar has been playing great, and Dennis Schroeder has been playing great. But and if I were to go really between the two of them, even I'd say it's Dennis Schroeder and Tim Hardaway Jr. that really have the most change in minutes for when Ivy gets back.
My only issue with the second rotation, and if Jaden Ivey is the sixth man, is who how are you going to decide who gets what shots? And there's only so many shots can go at the basket, and I think that would affect Malik in a way because he's not going to be able to. I can't imagine he's going to be able to keep his shooting as many shots as he is. Because right now Malik Beasley can kind of do whatever he wants in the second rotation. I think in a world where Jaden Ivey is in that second rotation with Malik, something's going to have to give. That's where JB Bickerstaff comes in and his greatness, just game planning for that. If we remember back to when Jaden Ivey got injured, what we were talking about at that time was the great chemistry that Cade and Jaden had at that time, because Jaden's rookie season, that was one of our worries, is like, ooh, Cade and Jaden don't play great together. Like, they don't know when to pass to each other. They don't know like when to take certain shots. And then the beginning of the season, they like really figured something out and it really clicked. And it was like a really big positive for the Pistons at that time. And what I'm going to be interested to see as Jaden Ivey makes his return is how him and Cade play together. I think they've been through a lot together with both of their stints with the Pistons. I think they've learned a lot. And I think with JB Bickerstaff and his great coaching, it's going to be able to give them a guide as far as doing these certain things in certain situations where I don't know if Monty Williams gave them that advising. And I think right away, JB Bickerstaff came in and he kind of fixed that relationship and the chemistry on the team or between those two players. So I'm going to be interested to see what kind of happens there. Is Cade Cunningham going to share bringing up the ball with Jaden Ivey? Who does the pick and rolls? Who's calling Jalen Duren up to the 3-point line more to work that pick and roll relationship? Is Jaden Ivey going to be making more of those back cutting to the basket and Cade trying to get him the ball in the paint? Like, I'm just going to be kind of interested to see what new ways that relationship grows on the court. And because that was a big positive that was at the beginning of the season before we even knew Cade was going to be an all-star, before we knew Jalen Duren was going to be a double-double machine. We knew that, like, oh, okay, Jaden Ivey and Cade Cunningham figured out that chemistry issue. That will do it for episode number 15 of season 3. Make sure to like and subscribe. Comment below your thoughts on Jaden Ivey's return, and we will see you guys in the next episode. Peace.